Hello, Warren. Thanks for joining me today to discuss our update for March. We've certainly had a roller coaster ride beginning to this year. I think this time last month, you and Theo were busy speaking about the land expropriation bill and how we viewed things around that. And little did we know we would be in the firing line with Mr. Trump around this particular bill just probably a few weeks later. I think from our perspective, we all know that there's going to be a lot of noise around the matter until we get to some point where, someone walks away maybe happier than the other. But what are your thoughts around this whole topic of debate at the moment?
I think we're learning what Trump 2.0 looks like, and part of it is a continuation from his first presidency, where he makes outrageous demands on the one side and says outrageous things, and then uses those demands as a negotiating tool. And I think we need to be clear in our minds that he is. You have to take him seriously. You can't ignore him and write him off as a clown. The mistake I think a lot of people are making is that they're taking him literally. So if he says, I will solve the Ukraine war in a day, and that was one of the things he did say before he became president, I understand that means the Ukraine war is on his agenda and he wants to get it resolved. The mistake to make there is to say, okay, so he didn't do it in a day, he's a liar, move on. Taking him seriously is that it's on his agenda and he's going to focus on it. And for him, a transaction, a deal, is more important than anything else. So you need to understand, if you're in that spotlight, so if you're Zelensky and he's saying, Trump's saying, we're going to end the war, I, Donald Trump, the greatest president in the history of all presidents, I'm going to end the war, then if you don't give him a deal, you become his enemy, and he'll bypass you and move on. And so giving him a deal could be that you give up a little bit of something that's unpalatable, but you give him a deal, and then he'll be on your side, and you get most of what you want. And so I think that's what's going through the whole world. If you look at, we're at the time of recording, we're right in the last 2 or 3 days of February. We don't have a deal in the Ukraine, but Russia and the US are negotiating. That's an important point here. Russia and the US. Ukraine was invaded by Russia, but they're not at the table. It's basically Putin and Trump, and that's another indication of the state of the world at the moment. We're in an era again. It's returning to kind of maybe post World War II style politics, where it is the era of big men. When you look at how the world was divvied up after World War II, it was decided by the American president and the Soviet president. They were the ones, and everyone else just had to fit in, including England. And I think that's what we're in again now. You've got Trump, Putin, and the Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, and they're going to decide what the world looks like for the next few years. So that's a long way of saying, if we look at what's going on with South Africa, already, for a couple of days, he focused on us and then he moved on. He moved on to another issue. It would be a mistake to think that we are forgotten. It would be correct if our politicians are approaching this conversation with Trump as a deal. And then you've got to understand what it is that he wants. What is the most important thing? Because he raised a few different issues, and I think the most important thing, and I mean, we've got no insight. I don't think he has insight into what he's going to do tomorrow. But I think it's really about Israel and getting one of his key allies and getting them out of the International Court of Justice and out of the kind of court of public opinion. And we, as a country, have put ourselves front and center in opposition to Israel. We are the ones that are prosecuting the case at the ICJ, and therefore morals aside, we are in this instance on the other side of Trump. And so we need to be clear as a country what we want, because if we want trade, if we want AGOA to continue and those kinds of things, we can't continue to oppose Trump's wishes. And if not, if we feel that the moral stance is more important, then we need to be prepared to walk away from trade deals. And I think we don't go to be public enemy number one. That would be when sanctions kick in. And I don't know why sanctions are on people's minds now. It's not been mentioned by the Americans, but we're not there. What we would do is lose preferential trade access, and then we would have to make up our trade with other countries. And really worth noting, like we don't trade a lot with Russia. We do trade substantially with China, but our biggest trading partner is America. And when you look at how we vote in the United Nations, we vote on the other end of America almost entirely, almost exclusively. And so now prosecuting this case against Israel just puts us front and center in opposition to the thing he cares about a lot. And maybe just as an illustration of how he thinks, when he puts out there that he's going to turn, Gaza into kind of like the new Vegas of the Middle East, it would be a mistake to take him literally. What you need to realize is he's looking at the situation, and the nations around Israel and Palestine haven't solved the problem. And they haven't done it for decades, if not centuries, if not thousands of years. And so he's putting a solution on the table that he is fairly sure is not palatable to anybody, but at the same time, it's the only solution that's on the table. And so he's forcing, in this instance, Jordan and Egypt to come to the table, to come up with a proper solution that is workable, and it can't be a continuation of what's happened for the last few decades. And I think that's the thing that Trump is bringing to modern politics right now is he's going to break things that are working. He might fix things that are broken, and 100% will throw everything up in the air and see where it lands, and then pivot from there. So with South Africa, we feel like it's all about us because he's talking about us, and we're a small country, and he's making us out to be the bad people. As I said, he's already moved on to other issues. So we've, Sherelee, we're going to have to come up with a proper set of tools and negotiation and transactions with a president like Trump, or find a way to fill the trade gap very quickly if we're going to continue to take an ideological stance on everything in our opposition to America. And that's kind of what it feels like to the Americans, is whatever they say, South Africa believes and says and votes the opposite. And that can be quite dangerous if you want to get trade deals with America. Why would they continue to give us preferential access? That they don't care about history. What they care about is what's good for American people and American interests, and we have to be awake to that.
Yeah, and as we always say, try not to predict anything during these times because we truly don't know what the outcome's going to be. But I guess after this whole Trump saga unfolded, we had a very rare event take place in our country where our budget was moved out till March. And this is because the GNU partners didn't agree to the actual outcome of what was going to be discussed in that budget speech. And the big topic of discussion was around the 2% VAT hike that they wanted to make. And although they wanted to do the 2% VAT hike, they were then also going to increase the pool of goods that would be VAT exempt, just so that it would try and lessen the burden on those that are unemployed or from communities that can't afford to be paying a higher VAT rate. So from that perspective, I think it was a bit of a shock, but at the same time, I think it really just showed that the GNU is working, that we didn't just have the ANC powering ahead with the decision and not thinking things through. So I think from that perspective, it was a good move. But of course, it brings uncertainty into the mix again. And again, we don't know what that final budget is going to look like. There's a lot of things that are being thrown around already, just in the news this morning again. But I think we will have to wait until the budget speech comes along to know exactly what their course of action is. Do you have any thoughts on this particular topic?
I think you're right. I think it's a very good sign of proper coalition government in action. So maybe just a few principal thoughts. One, the budget, this budget in particular, is very important because it's the first budget after the new government comes in power. So everything that's happened from a government point of view until now has been a continuation of what was started by the previous government. So that was an ANC-led government. So things around the Bila bill, the expropriation bill, all of those things were passed and implemented by the previous government, and the president in this time was signing off on things that were done in the past. So the first budget after the government is now kickstarted again in the new term, that first budget sets your priorities for the 5-year period. So it's an important thing to understand. It's not just a budget for the next year. It sets out what government is going to spend over 5 years. Where are we going to spend increasing amounts? Where are we going to flatline? Where are we going to decline? And so the alignment between the GNU parties on this budget is critical. And in any coalition government, the discussion around budgets is usually the most contentious thing, because that's where you see policy in action. Where the rubber meets the road is where are we going to spend our cash? And so I think it's certainly a learning experience for the ANC because if what we read is correct, they floated it past the GNU partners in a very broad, sort of in principle way early in Feb. They got feedback definitely from the partners saying we're not in favor of a hike of that. And then they proceeded until the morning of the budget, and then rolled out a 2% hike to the cabinet members, who then promptly rejected it. And so it is a learning. I would be very surprised if the ANC cabinet members were surprised that it got rejected. I think that they were banking on getting it through. They just thought it's the morning of the budget. Everyone values unity over everything else, and they'll grumble about it in the press, but our partners will come along. And I feel like what they were shocked with, the ANC, was that they didn't just get a vote in helping them along. So I think it's an important moment. As of today, we're recording after the special cabinet meeting yesterday, where the budget was discussed the first time. Looking at what was discussed, and again, this is not policy; it's not issued statements. It's kind of hearsay. I think the message has landed that you're not increasing taxes. So now you've got to find another way. And I think just to understand the corner that the ANC part of government has been painted into here is that they've set a budget, the previous budget that wasn't passed. They set that on their ideological grounds, the things that are important to them. What they didn't do was consult with their partners to say, okay, there are ideological things that we believe in, but there are things you don't believe in. What can we agree on? What are the things that are equal importance to both of us? And so that's the process that's ongoing now. The fact that they're trying to get it done within a month is good from the point of view that it then provides stability to markets and investors and everybody. But it does set the timelines to a very short amount of time and not a lot of scope for give and take. What has to happen in order for no taxes to rise is the ANC is going to have to walk away from some of its ideological key points. They can't keep just throwing money at the army in Congo. Like they just can't, to allocate more and more money to that just doesn't make sense to the other GNU partners who believe that that's a waste of time, effort, lives, and money. And so there are going to be ways that they have to give up. What they immediately tried to do, I think the ANC, was pull on the emotional heartstrings by saying, okay, well, we're not going to have money for new teachers, unemployed doctors, etc., and that got rejected. So now they're going to have to go to the politically difficult things that they don't want to go to, and they're going to have to. And I think I'm not an alarmist. I don't think that this spells the end of the GNU, but actually it is a really key issue. Like in any business, as you know, you've been part of them in Galileo's lives. When we're talking about budgets and allocating money and paying salaries or not paying bonuses and those kinds of things, it's emotive, and it has an impact on the direction of a company and, in this instance, a country. So they're going to have to strip back all of their priorities and say, what do we think is most important as the ANC, the DA, and the other partners, and then proceed. What I really liked was the reaction of the rand, the bond market, and the stock market, which was very short term, a little bit of a reaction, and then in the days following, no real reaction. The rand strengthened substantially. What I didn't like was the reporting from the media. It was incredibly alarmist. I think just frankly wrong. I think the headline writers of News 24 need an exercise in moving away from clickbait and back to reporting the facts. And if they don't have facts, balanced opinion, and we're not seeing a lot of balanced opinion. So the market's telling you something. Market commentators are incredibly balanced in their commentary around the budget, but the political hacks and the journos are not covering themselves in any glory around this thing. They're looking for drama, and so for our clients who are watching us and then contrasting with what's going on in headlines and on WhatsApp groups, they'll probably believe it's two unrelated issues, the difference in what's going on. So I think stay calm. You're right. We're certainly not going to change any strategy or any philosophy or any approach based on this. And we will respond from an investment perspective once we know the facts. And that's an important thing here. But, I think the News 24 broadcast the end of GNU about 54 times in the last 6 months. None of it's been true. So be careful of what you read at the moment. I think the media love this stuff because it gets people, to click on headlines and the like. But it's not very useful for investors who want to make long-term decisions.
Yes. And I think we're just seeing that happen more and more these days, actually. As you say, we have to really be aware of what we're reading. Maybe to end on something a bit lighter, in February 2023, we were placed on the Financial Action Task Force grey listing, which is really just around them being concerned that we weren't addressing issues like terrorist financing and money laundering very well as a country. And so they sat down and agreed to 22 things that we had to work on in order to be able to come off of that grey listing. And at the time, it was quite a big topic. I remember people panicking and what does this mean? And now we're in February 2025, and we have managed to fix up 20 out of the 22 points that we had to focus on. And they are very, very determined to get us off that grey listing by October of this year. The final 2 points that we still need to work on, they are working very hard to kind of get those ticked off the list too. But I think it's just a nice win for us if we can get off of that grey listing, because it does bring negative sentiment to investing in the country and the like. It also created a lot more paperwork when trying to do any kind of business overseas. We certainly felt that. But I think it's just a nice way for us to know that, when we put our minds to something as a country, we can get there and get to the point that we come off of these sorts of lists going forward.
Thank you, Sherelee. And I think maybe just, the other things to highlight are that almost no country gets out of a grey listing in a 2-year period. And we're not far off that if we get it right. Most countries take about 4 years. And so the last 2 points, the reason they're not done is because it's relating to actually going to court, prosecuting people, getting them convicted. And so there are court cases now, and they should happen, let's hope. The other thing that I think is very positive is that the ratings agencies are they're not re-rating South Africa. That's an important point. So it's not that they've upgraded our rating, but instead of continuously downgrading our prospects, where they say the outlook for the country is negative, they've gone from neutral and in some cases to positive. So they believe that if we continue on this trajectory, that we're in the situation of being able to get upgraded again. And so I think getting off the grey listing is very good. It certainly makes business easier. We will all feel that. But secondly, it does open the door again to an upgrading from a credit point of view, and that causes our debt repayments to reduce. So those are important issues. We don't feel them immediately like we do with load shedding. And I noticed you tiptoed around load shedding just after we've had it, and I'm grateful for the fact that we see load shedding, on the agenda a little bit, because what we're realizing is how bad it was when we were sitting with weeks and months of stage 4 with no real prospect of getting out of it. So it's a shock to have come through that now, and we don't want to see it. I'm not grateful that we've got it, but it is a nice reminder of how far we've come, with something like Eskom already, and a sign of what we would see with Transnet into the future. So there are some very nice green shoots. We do need a bit of political stability. We need NHI to be resolved as well. And if those things are all done, correctly and logically and rationally and not ideologically, then we're in for a very good time, I think, as a country. And it wouldn't be wrong to be optimistic if those dominoes fall correctly. And certainly we've been very guarded in our outlook about South Africa, and guarded in terms of telling people not to be too pessimistic, but equally we haven't been super optimistic. And I think that the foundations are being laid for us to look at our country a little bit differently now. But we do need a few more things to happen first. So nothing else from me. Thank you, Sherelee, and for our clients who are watching. The hard questions you're welcome to send to Sherelee. The easy ones I'll gladly deal with.
Thanks, Warren.